Imagine being told that everything is over, that there's no hope left, that the monitors have gone silent and the doctors have done everything they possibly could. Now imagine, in that moment of absolute darkness, a miracle so profound that it would shake the foundations of everything we think we know about life and death. This is not a fantasy. This is not a movie script. This is the true story of a mother who was declared dead and the baby who refused to let go. A story that challenges our understanding of medicine, faith, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. What happened in that hospital room defies explanation, and today you're going to hear every extraordinary detail. The question isn't just how this happened, the question is why. Why does life sometimes persist when all scientific evidence says it shouldn't? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will leave you speechless. It started like any other day at the hospital. A young mother, 27 years old, was in labor with her first child. She was nervous, excited, surrounded by nurses and doctors who had delivered thousands of babies before. Everything seemed routine. Everything seemed normal. But then, without warning, her body began to fail. Her blood pressure plummeted. Her heart rate became erratic. The medical team scrambled, moving with practiced urgency, administering medications, adjusting equipment, but nothing worked. Within minutes, what should have been a celebration turned into a desperate fight for life. The mother's heart stopped beating. The monitors flatlined, and in that sterile hospital room, time seemed to freeze. The doctors worked feverishly, performing CPR, shocking her heart, trying everything in their medical arsenal. But after 45 minutes of continuous resuscitation efforts, they made the heartbreaking decision. She was gone. The mother was officially declared dead. The baby inside her womb had been without oxygen for far too long. According to every medical protocol, according to decades of scientific knowledge, there was no hope for either of them. Now, imagine being the medical team in that moment. You've just lost a patient. You've just witnessed a tragedy that will haunt you forever. Protocol says to stop, to call it, to begin the painful process of notifying the family. But one doctor refused to give up completely. They made a decision that seemed almost futile: perform an emergency cesarean section on the deceased mother. The reasoning was medical, but perhaps also something deeper. Perhaps it was hope, perhaps it was faith, perhaps it was the unwillingness to let this tragedy claim 2 lives instead of 1. The surgical team moved quickly, their hands steady despite the emotional weight of the moment. They had maybe minutes, if that, before irreversible brain damage would occur to the baby. Every second mattered. Every heartbeat that wasn't happening felt like a countdown to another loss. The incision was made. The medical team worked with precision born from years of training, and then they lifted a tiny, silent baby from her mother's womb. The infant wasn't breathing. She was blue, unresponsive. By every measure, it appeared they were too late. The neonatal team took over, working on this tiny life with the same intensity they had given to saving her mother. But there was no response. The baby girl showed no signs of life. And then something inexplicable happened. A gasp. Faint, barely perceptible, but unmistakable. The baby took a breath, then another. Her tiny chest began to rise and fall. Her color started to change from blue to pink. The medical team stood frozen, witnessing something they couldn't fully comprehend. This child, who by all medical standards should not have survived, was breathing. She was alive. But the miracle didn't stop there. As the neonatal team worked to stabilize the newborn, something even more shocking occurred in the room where the mother's body lay. One of the nurses, who had stayed behind to prepare the deceased for the morgue, noticed something, a flutter, a movement. She called out, her voice breaking with disbelief. The mother's eyelids had twitched. The medical team rushed back. They checked for a pulse, expecting nothing. But there it was, faint, irregular, but present, a heartbeat. The woman they had declared dead was showing signs of life. How was this possible? She had been without a pulse for nearly an hour. Brain death should have been irreversible. Every medical textbook said this couldn't happen, but it was happening. Right before their eyes, a woman was coming back from death. Let's pause here and consider what the medical community calls this phenomenon. There's a term in medicine, Lazarus syndrome, the spontaneous return of circulation after failed resuscitation attempts. But even this rare occurrence typically happens within minutes, not after someone has been declared dead and a surgical procedure has been completed. What happened in this case goes beyond even the rarest medical anomalies. Some doctors theorized that the emergency cesarean section might have relieved pressure on the mother's heart and major blood vessels, somehow allowing circulation to restart. It's called perimortem cesarean delivery, and in extremely rare cases, it can save both mother and child. But those cases involve immediate action, not resurrection after death has been pronounced. Other medical professionals had no explanation at all. They spoke in hushed tones about the limits of human understanding, about the mysteries of life that science hasn't yet unraveled. And then there were those who spoke of something beyond medicine entirely. They spoke of faith, of divine intervention, of miracles that transcend our understanding of biology and physics. Because when you strip away all the medical terminology, all the scientific analysis, you're left with one undeniable truth. Two people who should be dead were alive, and nobody could fully explain why. Over the next hours and days, the mother slowly regained consciousness. At first, she was confused, disoriented. She couldn't remember what had happened. She couldn't understand why she was in intensive care, why her body felt so weak, why there were so many tubes and monitors attached to her. And then they told her about her daughter. They told her about the 45 minutes when her heart wasn't beating. They told her about being declared dead, about the emergency surgery, about the baby who was born in the shadow of death but chose life anyway. The mother wept, not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude. She had no memory of dying, no tunnel of light, no out-of-body experience, nothing. For her, it was as if she had simply fallen asleep and awakened to a miracle. When they finally brought her daughter to her, when she held that tiny baby in her arms, she felt something she couldn't put into words. It wasn't just love, though that was there in overwhelming measure. It was a sense of purpose. A feeling that they had both been given a second chance for a reason. The medical team ran tests. They checked for brain damage, organ failure, any sign of the trauma her body had endured. But incredibly, both mother and baby were remarkably healthy. There were no major complications, no devastating consequences from those critical minutes without oxygen. It was as if their bodies had been protected, preserved, held in some state between life and death until the moment was right to return. The family called it a miracle. The mother's parents, who had been praying in the waiting room, were certain their prayers had been answered. The father, who had been preparing himself for the worst loss imaginable, spoke of feeling a presence in the room, something he couldn't see but could feel, telling him to keep hoping. Religious communities around the world heard this story and saw it as confirmation of divine power, of God's ability to intervene in human affairs when all hope seems lost. But here's what makes this story even more profound. You don't have to be religious to recognize the extraordinary nature of what occurred. You don't have to believe in miracles to acknowledge that something happened here that challenges our understanding of possibility. Science and faith don't have to be in opposition. Perhaps they're two different languages trying to describe the same mystery, the incredible resilience of human life, the unexplained moments when the impossible becomes real. What this story teaches us is that there are still things we don't understand, despite all our medical advances, all our technology, all our knowledge. Life remains beautifully mysterious. And sometimes, in the darkest moments, that mystery reveals itself in ways that take our breath away. As for the baby girl at the center of this miracle, she grew stronger each day. The doctors monitored her closely, watching for any signs of developmental issues. Any consequences from those critical first minutes of life. But she thrived. She hit every milestone. She smiled, she laughed. She grew into a healthy, vibrant child. Her mother named her Grace, a name that seemed to capture everything about her arrival into this world. Grace meaning divine favor, unmerited blessing, a gift freely given. Today, Grace is a living testament to the unexplainable. She doesn't remember the circumstances of her birth, of course, but she carries with her a story that reminds everyone who hears it that life is precious, fragile, and sometimes miraculously resilient. Her very existence is an answer to the question, what happens when medical science reaches its limits? Sometimes something else takes over, something we might call miracle or faith, or simply the unstoppable force of life itself. So, what do we take away from this extraordinary story? Perhaps it's this. Never give up hope. Even when every indicator says there's no chance, even when the experts have done everything they can, even when the monitors have gone silent, life has a way of surprising us. This mother and daughter weren't supposed to survive. Their story wasn't supposed to have a happy ending. But here they are, living proof that sometimes the impossible happens. Whether you attribute this to medical anomaly, to divine intervention, or to the sheer will to live, the message is the same. We are surrounded by mystery. We are part of something far greater than we can fully understand. And in our darkest moments, that mystery might just be the light that guides us home. This story challenges us to remain open to wonder, to possibility, to hope, even when hope seems foolish. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about life, death, and the thin line between them, I want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed something that defied explanation? Do you believe in miracles? Hit that like button if this story touched your heart, and subscribe to this channel for more incredible true stories that remind us why life is so precious. Because stories like this, stories of hope against all odds, these are the stories we all need to hear. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the impossible is just life waiting to surprise us.